If you want talk, games, and fun all rolled into one, well, you've come to the right place. This is The Game Show, where host Bradley Clarke and his special guests talk about the world of television game and competition shows. But Bradley's guests aren't here to just talk. They came to play a game as well. What will today's topic be? What game does Bradley have planned? There's only one way to find out.
It's time to start the show.
You heard the man. Welcome to The Game Show. And here's your host, the Bradster himself, Bradley Clarke.
Did you miss me since listening to the previous episode? Well, no need to miss me any longer. Thank you so much, Austin Angelo, and welcome everybody to The Game Show, the talk show all about the world of television game and competition shows. And guess what? This is once again going to be a 2-hour episode. So sit back, relax, and get ready to listen to double the game show greatness. I'm Bradley Clarke, and once again, the world is going to be at my fingertips, because this episode will be another trip through memory lane for a former contestant on The Amazing Race. However, for this trip, we are going back, way back. And by way back, I mean back to the turn of the millennium. The year 2001. The place, Central Park in New York City. The event, the first ever Amazing Race, was about to begin.
I'm standing high above the center of New York City. For generations, the crossroads of the world. A world that will soon play host to 22 people who have decided to take a break from their everyday lives and embark on a race around the world for $1 million. The contestants will be racing without the benefit of personal computers or cell phones. They've been stripped of all money, credit cards, and maps. Their greatest resource will be each other as they circle the globe in teams of 2. Can these couples withstand the stress of traveling together across almost 35,000 miles? Who will muster the right combination of brains, brawn, and teamwork to win the $1 million? These are the questions weighing most heavily as we get ready to begin the Amazing Race.
As a viewer, the first Amazing Race was an extraordinary adventure that played out on my television screen. As someone who has seen every single episode of The Amazing Race, there is still something special that happens when I go back and watch the first race. Seeing the teams traveling around the world without any knowledge or expectations to back them up is mesmerizing. And watching their month-long journey unfold with plenty of highs and lows is awe-inspiring. However, ultimately, the feeling you get while watching the first season of The Amazing Race goes back to what host Phil Kogan says in the show intro for the season. This is a race like no other in history. Because at the time, it truly was.
It's the most daring competition ever attempted. 11 two-person teams, bound by friendship, love, or family, will race around the world. They have no idea where they're going, what dangers they may encounter, or how the journey will affect their lives. Most of the teams will be eliminated, but the team that reaches the finish line first will win a cash prize of $1 million. This is a race like no other in history. This is The Amazing Race.
So you're probably wondering, which of the 22 original racers is joining me on this episode of The Game Show? Well, if you're a fan of The Game Show, you would know that Team Guido, Joe Baldessare and Bill Bartek, were my special guests on 2 occasions. So that leaves 20 people to choose from. Well, I am pleased to tell you that my guest today is a member of one of my favorite teams in Amazing Race history.
Drew and Kevin, fraternity brothers and best friends for 17 years.
Kevin and I have done 0 for preparation.
Oh, we are the ugly American. There's no question about it. There's definitely the potential for an international incident.
They came so close to winning the $1 million prize when they placed 4th on the first ever season of The Amazing Race. They then got a second chance to race around the world during Season 11, The Amazing Race All-Stars, where unfortunately they placed 10th. Joining me on the line is one half of teammates Kevin and Drew from The Amazing Race Seasons 1 and 11, the man who said they had potential to get into an international incident. It's Kevin O'Connor. Kevin, welcome to the game show.
Thanks, Bradley. Thanks. It's awesome to be here.
I am so thrilled to have you. I've been watching The Amazing Race since I was 8 years old, so it's taken up a good portion of my life. And I've watched The Amazing Race Season 1, or as you like to put it, The Amazing Race period, at least 6 times.
Excellent. Excellent. Each 6 times, I bet you find a little something different from the last time you saw it.
You know what's so interesting? And I was going to bring this up later on, but since you brought that up now, I just rewatched Amazing Race 1 to get myself hyped up to talk with you. And for the first time ever, I noticed in the opening shots where the bus is coming over the bridge that you're taking to get to Central Park, I noticed for the first time ever that the Twin Towers are actually briefly in the shot.
Is that unbelievable? We did that trip in March of 2001. And if I remember correctly, there were some other shots that had the Twin Towers in the background. I think when Phil does that first opening in the first episode where he's on top of a building, and for the first time ever, he's explaining to people that 11 teams with pre-existing relationships are about to go around the world, and very dramatic, and he's on the top of a building, and then they do the big pull away, and you could see a lot of Manhattan. So, yeah, it was bittersweet, obviously. A tragic, awful thing that happened right after we had this great moment. We wept with a lot of New Yorkers during that point in time.
Do you by chance know what building Phil was doing the opening on top of? Because I've never been able to figure out which building it is.
If I'm going to guess, he might be on top of the building where we stayed. So we stayed at, I believe it's the Hilton that's right off of 8th Avenue, I think, on 42nd Street in New York City. And he might be on top of that building unless they had arranged to get a permit and go somewhere else. I don't think there was anything else terribly identifiable. But when we started the race, they told us, you guys are going to come here. So we showed up at the hotel, and we went in, and all the teams kind of had their own room, and we're just dying to get going and trying to figure out what is this thing going to look like and what's it going to feel like. So there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of nervousness. And I'm wondering if maybe they just didn't ask to go on top of that Hilton building in Times Square. I have to look back and check it out and see. I mean, it definitely is Midtown because you can see a whole lot of New York City behind where Phil is standing. And then when they do that pull away, you get to see even more.
So we're going to talk about both of your incredible adventures around the world. Unfortunately, your second one wasn't too long, but I still have a few questions relating to All-Stars. And then later on, I have a game for you to play, and it's based on the destinations that you visited in the first season, and we'll play it later on.
Wow, you're really testing my memory here, Bradley. I'm getting old, man, so I forget these things. I forget what I did yesterday. Never mind what I did 18 years ago.
Don't worry, it's multiple choice trivia.
Perfect.
So are you ready to chat your way around the world with me?
Let's chat our way around the world, Amazing Race style.
Well, as Phil Kogan likes to say, the world is waiting for us. Good luck, travel safe, go! And we're off. Before we get into the race itself, I'm curious to know how you and Drew met. I know that you're from Jersey and Drew's from Staten Island, and you met at St. John's University?
That is correct. We were fraternity brothers. The fraternity is called Delta Psi Upsilon, and we met a long time ago. And he was a year ahead of me, and so he got the edge right out of the gate. He got the one up on me because he was able to pledge me, and so I had to deal with his crap right from the word go. And it turned out to be one of the coolest things I've ever done, pledging a fraternity and being part of an awesome group of guys. And I still talk to these guys regularly, almost on a daily basis, and so these are friends of mine for life. And so Drew and I met at St. John's, and we had 3 years together at St. John's, but obviously we stayed close after school. And then we worked together for a period of time, actually. I got him a job. Foolishly, I asked somebody to give him a job where I worked. And so then I was seeing him every day for a period of, I guess, 2 or 3 years. So we worked together for a while and then kind of progressed our way into this TV venture. And a little disclosure, we went to what many people referred to as the fake St. John's. So we were on the Staten Island campus. In fact, Drew himself is from Staten Island. I'm from Bayonne. Bayonne is connected to Staten Island via the Bayonne Bridge. And so it was always a very short trip for me. But some of these knuckleheads from Staten Island, they used to ask me, oh, my God, you're coming all the way from Jersey? And I'm thinking to myself, I probably get here faster than a lot of you guys do. But we did not go to the Queens campus. We went to the Staten Island campus.
So were you and Drew adventurous people during college, or did the race really bring out that sense of adventure for you?
Well, when you say adventurous, neither one of us are really alpha male types like Robin Brennan, like all the adrenaline and all that crap. So we were not those kind of guys, but we like to have a good time. So we did lots of things together. We went on a bunch of cruises all over the Caribbean. We were down in Mexico. We were up in Canada. So we went and visited a little bit, but truth be told, we didn't even have a passport when we went out to California for the final auditions. So both of us had to scramble when they told us that we were a go to join the cast. And in fact, we were so close that Drew and his father had to beg some guy at a local Staten Island post office to go in after hours and help them sort through the mail bins to find his passport. So that's how close Drew was to not getting out of the country. And it's just typical for Drew, everything with him. There's always something, last-minute fire drill, but he figured it out, got his passport, and off we went.
You mentioned on the DVD box set of The Amazing Race Season 1 that you found out about the show because of a newspaper ad in the Daily News. When you saw the ad saying that a new reality show was looking for teams of 2 that would compete in a race around the world, did you immediately think that Drew would be the perfect partner for you?
Well, truth be told, of our group of close friends from the fraternity, Drew and I were the only ones left who hadn't gotten on with our lives. So we were the only ones who weren't married, only ones who didn't have kids. So it was perfect. We were hanging out and going out and spending a lot of time together. He had just actually started dating Rose. And I remember when I told him, said, hey, I found this article. This is for us. We need to do this. And this was maybe a month or two after Richard Hatch won the first Survivor. And so here's this guy, right? He's on the cover of every newspaper, every magazine throughout the world, right? He's like the most famous guy of the moment. And so I said to him, hey, listen, they're saying in this article that this show is going to be like Survivor on speed. I'm like, this is definitely for us. And the fact that they were looking for 2 people, right? So you had to have a team of 2. I'm like, dude, that's you and me. We should go. We should do it. So we both said, yes, we're going to do it. So there was like a 20-page application that we had to fill out. So I printed it out for him. I dropped it off at his house. I said, just finish it up. We got to do it, da-da-da-da-da. So it just dragged on. As we got closer to the due date, he never got that application done. So I was furious with him. And, he was like, don't worry about it. If it gets on TV, we'll do it next time. And I'm thinking to myself, next time, if it gets on TV, everybody's going to want to do it. And so I was kind of bummed out, but I was watching CBS.com because I wanted to see, 50,000 people show up to the open casting and CBS receives 1 million videotapes. I wasn't seeing any of those updates. And then I looked at one day and it said that CBS's Summer Global Adventure Series, so they had renamed it again. So they call it CBS's Summer Global Adventure Series. The entry deadline was pushed back for another 2 weeks or something like that. So as soon as I saw that, I called him and I said, dude, I'm going to pick up my friend's camera, Franny Woo Woo, going to Franny Woo Woo's house, picking up the camera, and I'm coming to your house. Rose is going to film us. It's going to be nothing fancy. We're just going to sit there and explain to people who we are, why we're friends, what we like to do, and why we think we would win this race. And so that's what we did. We went and sat in his kitchen, literally the refrigerator as the background, and his girlfriend at the time, Rose, who would later become his wife and now ex-wife, filmed the video for us. And we had to do probably a dozen takes because we would screw up and then she would be holding the camera and laughing so hard that it was shaking. So the production value was terrible. So we finally got one take that we liked. I made him fill out the application. I took everything. I went directly to FedEx and sent it off to CBS.
At the time, reality TV was new, with Survivor premiering in the year 2000 and The Amazing Race premiering in 2001. And back in the earlier seasons of both shows, the casts were relatively older than many reality competition show casts now. The first race specifically had a nice age range of people, but you certainly don't see that on current Amazing Race seasons. So I'm curious, Kevin, what are your overall thoughts on the current state of Amazing Race casting? And had you and Drew applied for the show in today's day and age, do you think you would have been casted?
Well, if I'm applying with Drew, maybe we do get on the show because I think we still have that dynamic between one another that I think appeals to folks. Everybody used to tell us, oh, I have two uncles who are just like you, or I have cousins or brothers just like you guys, always fighting all the time. But I think what has happened is casting has gone through a lot of changes over time. And I think it's the same with everything. There's kind of that cyclical continuation of contestants that are available, and then they have to mix in some stunt casting to keep it interesting, and then they go back to the regular contestants. But they'll never capture the magic of that original cast and the mix that we had. And then you saw season 2, season 3, season 4. It was kind of a focus or a bias towards younger couples, which are great because people like to look at nice, young, attractive people on TV. They don't really want to look at me and Drew. And then as they went on, you started to see, now we're going to have this guy. He was a former professional wrestler. And then you had the Harlem Globetrotters. And then you had Centerfold or two. And then you had Cord and Jet, who actually appeared on our Discovery show before they showed up on The Amazing Race. So we actually knew Cord and Jet before they were on Amazing Race. We had done a segment at their ranch in Oklahoma with our Discovery show. So, yeah, I think your point is well taken. There was lots of different changes in casting over time. And, of course, I'm biased, but they'll never capture that first cast again. It was so perfect. They picked the exact right people to be there, and that's really what made it so memorable.
And even though the racers on every season have no idea what is coming next, one of the memorable aspects as a viewer of season 1 is that you can feel the excitement and the thrill and the surprise from all of the racers, because you and everyone else truly had no idea what was going to happen since there was no previous frame of reference.
That's true. And like I said, we showed up at the hotel a few days before we actually took off. So they explained the rules to us there. But unless you see it and unless you're playing it, unless you're out there doing it, you just don't get it. You're kind of like, oh, what did they say that roadblock meant? Or what does a detour mean? And then they started adding more stuff, U-turn and hazard and whatever else they added over time. So it was funny running the race. Of course, we had no idea what we were doing, so we were just kind of winging it. But even more so, in retrospect, watching some of the production people and how they were struggling to stay ahead of us, they had it well planned. Don't get me wrong. Bert and Elise and all those production people, they are unbelievable with the organization of how that all comes together. When you're playing a game and the board is literally the world, the logistical challenges and nightmares that could happen, there's no way you can count them. It's crazy to think that you could send a group of 22 people around the world, make them all follow a similar path, and get to a common spot so that you can determine, okay, this is the person we're going to eliminate. So we would bump into production people who were going ahead of us to the next location, and then they would be on a walkie-talkie going, oh, my God, they're here. They're on our flight. What are we going to do? Because they weren't even set up at the next location, and here we are on their flight already. So we were moving, I think, a lot quicker than they really anticipated. So that was kind of fun, bumping into folks and seeing them. Then we get to the pit stop, and everybody can breathe for 10 minutes. We would all laugh about it and go, this is unbelievable. Nothing like this has ever been done. How in God's name are we going to get this whole band of people, all this stuff to the next location in Thailand and then in China and then in Alaska? It was really quite a marvel that they got it all done and now have gotten it done for 32 seasons.
Yeah, season 32 hasn't aired yet, but it has been filmed. So 32 seasons as of now, correct?
Yep.
So let's begin our season 1 chat at the starting line, the Bethesda Fountain in New York City's Central Park. As you were looking at the other 10 teams standing beside you, did you think you had a decent chance of making it far or perhaps winning?
Yeah, I thought we were going to be just fine. I mean, you look down the line and you see guys who are in really good shape, like Frank of Frank and Margarita, Paul of Paul and Amy. He's a hockey player. He could run all day and all night. Drew and I weren't exactly physical marvels, but we figured there's a good mix of people here. We knew going into it that they couldn't just make it a physical challenge kind of race because that wouldn't be fair to Dave and Margareta, the grandparents, or to Emily and Nancy, the mom and daughter. So So we knew that we would be right in the middle, and it was just going to take a little bit of savvy, a little bit of gumption, if you will, to get through this race. And so that was the one thing that we knew that we were long on. We were savvy. We had gumption. We were going to be able to talk to people no matter where we were, always make people feel at ease. And we kind of were confident in that. We told every media outlet that we talked to before we even left for Bethesda Fountain back at the hotel. They had us do all these interviews. And we told everybody straight out, we think we're going to win because this. And every time they would ask, who do you think is going to win? We think we're going to win. I think everybody else was probably pretty confident in themselves as well, but we really felt it.
After Phil said go, you were shown casually walking up the steps to get your bags while everyone else was running. And on the DVD set, you explained that you saw no point in running to get to your first clue.
All right, everyone. The world is waiting for you. I want to wish all of you the best of luck. Travel safe. Go!
When you realized that you were on the last flight to Johannesburg, South Africa, did you regret not running and trying to get a lead over some of the teams going to the airport?
No, because your options were run to the bag as fast as you can and then run out to the street and get a taxi, or run down to the subway and get the first subway to go out to the airport, or, which my first thought was, why don't we just let everybody run to get there? We'll call ahead and we'll make a reservation. This is what everybody else in the world does. They call ahead, they make a reservation. So I called up and I was like, hey, South African Airlines, understand you have a flight to Johannesburg. What's the next one? We'd like to be on it. And so that's where we kind of found out, yeah, you could buy tickets, and it was always with production. They kind of covered us. So once we made the arrangements, then they would take care of it for us. But in this particular case, they would not allow us. So they did say there are seats blocked, and they wouldn't give them to us. They said that we had to be there. So kind of shot ourselves in the foot with that one. But the way everybody ran, the race was going to be over in the first 30 seconds. We were like, listen, let's let everybody else run. We'll get there. Everybody's going to get there at the same time anyhow. What's the big deal?
From Johannesburg, you took another plane to Zambia and had to find the smoke that thunders, which was Victoria Falls. Seeing the falls in all of its glory, Drew famously uttered the line, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen."
This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Knowing that this was only the first route marker destination on the race, did this get you excited about what other unbelievable sights are to come if you and Drew continue to stay in the race?
Yeah, that was pretty much the first unbelievable thing we saw. There's still a lot of controversy about who the two people who were running across the bridge really were. Brennan would tell you that he thinks it was somebody else. He thinks it might be Paul and Amy, but I like to think it was Drew and I. Whether it was or it wasn't, that's exactly what we said. We were running across. We were like, holy crap, this is really unbelievable. And so right then, I think, is when it really hit us. This is really going to be an amazing trip. I think we both expected that it was going to be awesome. But when you see that kind of natural beauty, it was breathtaking. And so we got to the clue, and of course, I'm out of air and probably still a little bit dizzy from running across that bridge and seeing all the water around us. You really couldn't see anything because it was just like we were running through a cloud almost of mist. And the first thing I do is I open the clue and I say, get yourself to Batoka George. So instead of saying Gorge, I say George. So I got a lot of crap about that.
At Absale, Zambia, top of Batoka George. Take this back to the car, right?
I think there's a few people who said the same thing, and maybe it was spelled wrong. I'll have to look into that, but it really was a marvel to see.
You then had to travel to Batoka Gorge, where the first ever detour was located. Even to this day, after watching the moment many times, I still cannot stop laughing at your response when Drew said that Batoka Gorge was located under the big tree.
If you can please help us, we need to find Batoka Gorge. If you will, please.
Where is the big tree?
To the left?
To the left, yes.
Okay, so off the main road. Thank you so much, folks. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Drew, come on! Get in the car! Get in the car!
Kev,
He told me the same
be
thing.
cordial and nice to these people.
Drew,
you
just
can't
stop.
be yelling at me to get in the car when I'm trying to be
Drew,
nice to them.
stop. You just get out of the
You
fucking
have
place.
to get out of the car.
You don't
and you have to approach people in an affable, friendly way.
Max,
you don't do it like you're in New York.
Don't listen to him. Don't listen to a word he's saying.
You're an idiot.
Don't listen to a word he's saying.
He said go to the main road, make a right, and then there's going to be a big tree.
Under the big tree. Those are the directions you got. It's under the big tree.
Now, Kev, you don't ask from the car. You have
Bro,
to
shut
get
up.
out. And, sir, please, thank you.
Hi, my friend. How are you? Good, thanks. Tell me where Batoka Gorge is.
Hi, how are you, my friend?
Fine, how are you?
Very well, thank you. We're lost. We need a little bit of help.
Did you ever find the so-called big tree that the guy giving the directions to Drew referred to?
I think we may have come upon the big tree. Of course, for locals, they could say, oh, yeah, that's the big tree. They know the big tree. But he's yelling at me on how to conduct myself and how to talk to people. Of course, whereas Drew, if you hear his voice, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. You hear that voice and you just want to jump out a window. And he's lecturing me on how to be nice, on how to be friendly, and telling me this is the way I have to talk to people. So I let him go and I let him do his routine. And he comes out and he goes, I got directions. Make a left at the big tree. And then it just hit me. You're kidding me. Those are the directions that you got? Make a left at the big tree. We're in Africa and we're going to make a left at the big tree? That was the first fight of many throughout the 30 days that we were out there.
With all of that yelling happening in the car, I was feeling a little bad for Maxwell the driver.
Maxwell was our guy. He was laughing the whole time, and I kept patting him on the shoulder. Don't worry, Maxwell. Don't listen to that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, for example, he gets one of those books, and I say to him, Drew, why did you get the book? He's like, because they were handing them out. And so I said to him, okay, so what's in the book? And he goes, oh, there's a map. He goes, look, here we are. And I look at the map. He's pointing to Namibia. And so I said to him, that's Namibia, jackass. And that became a quote that a lot of people have thrown at us as we went around and did a lot of these appearances and got to meet people who watched the show. Everybody liked that's Namibia, jackass.
Drew, come on!
Wait, we can't leave it.
It's what?
Oh, yeah, here's for the book.
Just go up to... Drew, stop taking out money every time these guys come over.
You just said, can we get the book?
I thought it was free and he was giving them to you.
Eh, nothing's free, Kevin. We're into Africa. You go to the Statue of Liberty. Is a guy giving these things away for free? For crying out loud. Free. Well, it's got a map in it, though, here. Zambia, there's where we are.
That's Namibia, jackass.
But that was Drew. Here we are, first foray into a foreign country in Africa, the big tree, and he's pointing to a map of Namibia. So this is what I was saddled with, Bradley. This is how I began my journey.
Well, speaking of famous lines, at the first ever detour at Batoka Gorge, you uttered one of the most famous lines in Amazing Race history when Drew was jumping off of the gorge. You said, and I quote, "Swing, you fat bastard, swing!"
These flies are like lobsters here.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Kev! Swing, you fat bastard, swing!
In the moment, it was a very playful statement, but now that it has become a very iconic line in the series, does Drew ever give you any backlash for essentially calling him a bastard on national television?
No, not at all. We always bicker with each other. We always kid each other about our weight. There's always some busting chops going on. That was just something, honest to God, seeing him fall off that cliff at literally 100 miles an hour. And then when it stopped, I think I was so relieved because it was kind of like a guillotine, right? It wasn't like a true bungee where you just bounced up and down. It just stopped. And as soon as it stopped, he started swinging side to side. And that was literally the first thing I thought of was swing, you fat bastard, swing. And that became a regular lexicon for ages. People still to this day will say that when I meet them. People sent us bottles of fat bastard wine. We were in L.A. one time and driving alongside another car. We happened to be in the back, and Drew, who's a smoker, had the window open, and a guy literally pulled right up next to us and yelled right into the car, "Swing, you fat bastards." And so it became a term of endearment for us, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. It was awesome.
Did you watch recently back in season 27 when they revisited Batoka Gorge?
All right, let's do it.
Let's get a check.
Holy cow. All right, roadblock.
It's to gorge themselves. You can do this.
All right, I will gorge myself.
This is the Zambezi River, where it all began.
Swing, you fat bastard, swing! Oh my God, Kev!
The very first Amazing Race Challenge. And the first challenge for teams on this leg of the race.
I wasn't watching, but folks who were watching were like, oh my God, we saw you last night. This has happened a few times where they've shown clips of past episodes, and it was awesome that other people who maybe didn't watch the first season or the Amazing Race period. And so it was good that they got to see it, and maybe they said, hey, you know, those guys are kind of funny. I wonder what they were like. And maybe they've gone on to Amazon Prime or something else to try and watch and see what season 1 was all about.
And I recently watched the newest season of The Amazing Race Australia, and during Leg 8, the teams visited Batoka Gorge, and for the roadblock, one team member had to complete the same jump.
Oh, roadblock. Who's ready to gorge themselves?
A roadblock is a challenge that only one team member can perform. For this roadblock, that person is going to have to throw themselves head first into this challenge. Time for one member from each team. Time for one member from each team to gorge themselves. This is Batoka Gorge. It's 316 metres wide and 120 metres high, with the hippo-filled Zambezi River flowing right through the middle. Our teams are going to have to complete a leap of faith and hope they don't become hippo food. And when they get back to the top, they'll receive their next clue.
No kidding. Excellent. That was quite awesome. I had never done anything like that. I mean, that's just not my thing. People have all these things on their bucket list. They want to bungee jump off a bridge, whatever. Not me. That was it. I'll never do that again, especially now that I have kids. I'm like, what am I going to do that for? God forbid that thing breaks. My kids don't have a father. But back then, to do it because we were in this race and we had to go that way, I didn't even think twice about it. In fact, I think I was one of the few people that actually did not get shown jumping off in the actual episode. So that was kind of a bummer for me.
That's right, yeah, they only showed you yelling at Drew.
Yeah, which was enough. I was fine with that. They did have a clip on CBS.com, so contemporaneous to when we were actually out there and they were showing little clips online. There was a clip of me, and I made no noise whatsoever. I was grunting. It sounded really weird. It sounded very guttural. I'm actually relieved that they didn't show me on TV.
The first leg featured an unaired roadblock that required one team member at Songwe Village to cook an ostrich egg for both team members to eat. Brad fact! But on your way to Songwe Village, there was a scene where you acted as if you were sure you and Drew were getting eliminated because you started pounding the clue paper and said, "We're out."
U-turn. Maxwell, U-turn. U-turn. Wait, Kevin. Songwe Village. Go straight. Go this way. Go that way. Go that way. Go that way. Wait. Songwe Village. Maxwell, just go. Wait. Dude, come on. Go. Do you see this? We're out.
When you ended up getting to Songwe Village, were there other teams still there eating the ostrich egg?
So when we got there, I think there were two teams who were ahead of us, and they were trying to cook their egg. Now, this ostrich egg is about the size of a small football, and it's got some weight to it, and obviously the shell is pretty thick. And so me and Drew, we just kind of like, all right, we're not going to stand here and cook because obviously we're going to be last. So he just busted the egg open, and there was a wooden bowl there, poured it into the bowl, and just started drinking from it. And then I started drinking part of it, and I started gagging, so he took it back and kind of finished the whole thing. I mean, it was all over his shirt. It was really nasty. So we got to go ahead. It was definitely Emily and Nancy were there, and I forget who else was there, and they were also trying to cook their egg. But we just sucked down the raw ostrich egg, and he had probably 3/4 of it. Maybe I had 1/4 of it, so he saved me on that one. But that was our plan all along. Anything that involved driving or eating that he was going to do, because he eats like he's going to the electric chair, and he's a driver. He's got a law enforcement background, so he's trained to drive like a maniac, and he drives like a maniac even when he's not at work. So that was a decision we made long before we even got off the ground.
Did the clue after the detour instruct you to go anywhere specific in Songwe Village where another clue envelope would be? Because when Frank read the clue to the camera at the bottom of the gorge, he said that the teams were simply checking in at the pit stop at Songwe Village.
Good work. Now drive yourself to Sangwe Village. Warning, the last team to check in will be out of the race. That won't be us, that's for sure.
Nope. So when we got there to the entrance of Songwe Village, there was a flag, and it said roadblock. Before entering Songwe Village, the team must finish this ostrich egg. So it did get yanked completely out of production. Probably didn't make for good TV because there was a lot of vomiting. As soon as we went into Songwe Village, Drew and I went right to the bathroom, and we were both throwing up. So it was pretty gross.
Let's go to leg 3 in Paris, where you and Drew elected to go for the fast forward by asking for a specific tea at Mariage Frere Tea Shop. You decide to use your one and only fast forward for the race on that leg after not getting to Le Grand Rue before it closed that night.
Le Grand Rue, 9 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. Fast forward. Visit a tea shop called Mariage Frere Rive Gauche. Scratch ass. Excusez-moi.
Excusez-moi.
Parlez-vous
Monsieur, monsieur, La Grand Rue.
And where are you from?
New York.
New York, yes.
We need to go La Grand Rue.
Oh, Carnival? The Ferris wheel?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
That's it?
Yeah,
That's it, merci. Merci. Oh.
S'il vous plaît.
Did you see other Americans?
Yes, he's coming.
Oh, they came in?
Yeah, he's coming.
Jesus, again, 2 minutes is gonna cost us 12 damn hours.
You know what? If they all did, the only way that we stay ahead.
Then we're the ones who get the fast forward.
Well, that's the only shot we have right now.
I hate to use the fast forward so early on, though.
Kev, but we have no choice. I'm not being equal with 4 other teams.
Well,
12 hours behind.
Well, let's go see.
Eight hours behind.
Merci.
Each team can use the fast forward only once during the entire race, so they must carefully consider when it's most advantageous to go for it. In this case, the fast forward is hidden inside an obscure tea shop called Mariage Frere. To claim it, teams must ask for a tea called L'Aventurier.
We gotta make it to the tea shop.
Mariage. Excuse me, you know this tea shop?
A tea shop we're looking for.
Mariage Frere?
The next one or the next one up?
Where by that light? Fast forward, baby!
Throw a bag in there. Throw it right in the door. Right in the door. We have no food. We have no water. We're all set.
It doesn't get much better than this, huh?
No, this is it. Good night.
Good night, Kevin.
Good night, Drew. Good night, John Boy.
Good night. I just don't think the city's anything special, you know.
No,
This is just like being down in Soho.
Yeah.
Ah! Hey, you're the manager. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Geez, why did I think it was going to be an old guy who looked like Ben Franklin? Bonjour, monsieur.
Do you have a tea called L'Aventurier?
Yes, of course.
That's
for us.
That's for you?
Very
Let's
good.
smell it, though, just.
Very nice.
A little oregano-y.
Fast forward, very good. Congratulations, you have found the fast forward. Go directly to the next pit stop. Chateau of Les Beaux de Provence. Check in at the top of the castle.
Yes.
It's in the south of France? Yeah, very nice.
Nice.
Good.
Nice, we could go to the beach, maybe.
Yeah, well.
Is it warm? Warmer there? We're going to the south of France, boys.
This is the ancient village of Les Beaux de Provence. Carved from stone over 2,000 years ago, it sits 300 miles south of Paris in the rolling hills of southern France.
Here we are, sitting pretty, we hope, and don't intend to relinquish the lead.
As Drew and Kevin proceed here with the fast forward, all other teams must complete the tasks in Paris.
Looking back, do you think it was a smart move to use the fast forward on leg 3? Because as it turned out, despite 4 teams getting the clue at the Ferris wheel that night, both detour options didn't open until 10 a.m., so all the teams would have been equal at that point.
Yeah, we thought about it. I mean, as it turned out, we probably missed, other than eating the ostrich egg, we probably missed the nastiest task that had to be done, walking through the French sewer. That would have been a real battle to see who was going to go down and do that. So I didn't mind missing that, and jumping out on the fast forward, it really didn't give us a huge lead, but I think at that point, we just figured, you know what? Why are we going to risk it? Let's just go in the morning, get this, miss everything else that we have to do. And I guess we were counting on there being more to do, but there probably was a better time that we could have used it, but nothing really comes to mind because the great equalizer was operating hours. That was it. That's how they kept everybody kind of close because you couldn't really jump out to a huge lead. There was one point in the race where Drew and I got out of the airport before everybody else, and that was leaving India and going to Thailand. And it was like a last-minute thing. We had to convince somebody in the airline office to use a credit card for a cash advance, and they gave us the cash, and we were able to pay. Literally, as the door was closing, we're running onto the plane. So now we're thinking, woohoo, here we are. Everybody else is stuck. We're the only ones that got out. And, of course, we get to Thailand, and boom, operating hours. Nothing happens until 9 o'clock the next morning. So we had the whole night to ourselves, and that was pretty good. And then when we got to the temple in the morning, everybody was there. So it was like, really? And that's just the way it goes. But everybody will tell you the same thing. The operating hours, that was the big equalizer. Taxis were also the big equalizer because you just never knew what you were going to get. Sometimes you did great. Sometimes you did terrible. Right at the end, we did terrible, but it was a lot of fun. The fact that we were so close together and kept it bunched up, I think that really made it suspenseful and enjoyable. If somebody was off on a 12-hour lead, kind of like the way Robin, Brennan, and Frank and Margarita were towards the end when we were fighting for the Guidos at that last spot, if they were out in front the whole time, nobody would care. It was like, all right, so one of these two teams is going to win eventually. But I think they kept us together, and it worked out really well.
Well, now, especially on the more current seasons, you can really see how they bunch up the teams a lot.
Yep, they do. And I think definitely it's a function of a few things, but there's definitely some thought that's put into it. There has to be some by design because you just don't want people getting off to a big lead. But those are some of the fun times, too, you know, where everybody got stuck together and we were sitting around together and chatting it up and kind of developed that relationship of doing this once-in-a-lifetime thing, or I guess now once in a 32-lifetime thing. So it was a lot of fun. And while we would have all enjoyed having a 12-hour lead, I think we were all pretty happy to be together for most of the time.
During the next leg, leg 4, the first clue instructed you to find a man located in the country represented by a flag that was provided.
From this remote castle in the south of France, the teams have to find this man. The catch is, he's waiting for them in another country, and the teams haven't been told which one. Their only clues are this picture, this flag, and the instructions to take a boat from Marseille.
Now, Season 1 was known for having riddle-like and non-discrete clues, and co-creator and executive producer Elise Doganeri has said that the clues on the first race were meant to be challenging because there was $1 million at stake for the winner. So Kevin, seeing how the race has evolved since Season 1, do you sometimes wish the clues on the current race would be constructed like they were in the first season so the teams can experience what you and the rest of the contestants went through during the show's inception?
You know, I sometimes think when I hear some of the clues, I'm like, oh, God. But then some of the tasks that these people had to do, I think are so much more difficult than even the most difficult of the tasks that we had to do. So I think I'm pretty happy the way it worked out for us. But talking about finding the man in the country represented by that flag, here we all are. We're in the south of France, and we're supposed to get a ferry to go to northern Africa. And so we're all out, and we're walking around down by where the ferry terminal is and asking people, and everybody is giving us different answers. So ultimately, it turned out it was the Tunisia flag, but the Algiers flag looks very similar. There are other flags that all had that red field and the white. So even the people who live there, who live closest to where we were going, those folks had no clue what country that flag was from. So it was like, oh, God, where are we supposed to go? When they opened up the ticket booth, we all felt very confident. Okay, this is going to Tunisia. This guy is in Tunisia. There's no doubt in our mind.
You just mentioned about the challenges on today's races being more difficult than they were when you raced in Season 1. And I wanted to talk about that. So Leg 5 took place in the Sahara Desert in Tunisia, and the roadblock that leg required one team member to ride a camel while the other team member guided it to the next clue.
Here's the basket right here. Okay, stop. This is good.
Stop.
Through one time, he can hear you. Go. Just take it out. Let's go.
Roadblock.
A roadblock is a task that only one team member may perform. They must choose which one of them will perform the task before they find out exactly what it is.
Clue, who wants to go for a ride? I don't know.
Doesn't make a difference.
Do you not want to do it?
I'll do it.
All right, if you don't want to do it. If you have no problem doing it. Climb onto the camel and follow compass bearing 240 degrees to the flag flying in the distance. Holy jeez. P.S. The player who doesn't ride must walk alongside you. We already chose. I don't feel like walking here with the scorpions. Let me tie this on my face first. This is gonna be brutal.
In this task, teams must take a camel into the dunes of the unforgiving Sahara Desert. With only compass coordinates to guide them, they must figure out how to get to this route marker in the middle of nowhere. The chosen team member must ride the camel, and with temperatures soaring over 100 degrees, the other team member must walk. For the equivalent of $50, teams can hire a camel handler to help them control the camel.
This doesn't look like an English-speaking crowd up here. And they're gonna tell me to get on a camel. Hello?
Hello.
How are you, everybody?
One camel?
Yeah.
One camel.
All right, very good.
Do you know what to do?
Well, no. Well, he's not happy. He's not a happy camel.
Yeah, he'll go wherever you steer.
There's the flag, Drew. I see the flag.
Oh, you see it?
Yes, I do.
Oh, it's right over there.
I see it.
Come on.
Yeah, but he's not gonna go, Drew.
He'll go. Kick him.
He's going the wrong way.
You gotta steer it. Pull it tight. Give me this thing. You're an idiot. You never rode a horse before?
Rode a horse. You see? Yeah, he's gonna let you do it now, huh?
Now, many of the challenges in Season 1 weren't actually challenges, but as Phil would describe them, they were simple tasks. A number of the detours and roadblocks were more about choosing one of two ways to get to a specific destination, or one team member performing a specific role during a task. So overall, did you find the challenges to be challenging, or was the traveling and navigation the more challenging aspect of the first race?
I think it's the latter, figuring out how to get to where you want to go. That was always pretty difficult. And so here we are, we go running into an airport and everybody goes running to a different desk and everybody's trying to find the quickest way. And you become an expert on how airlines work and the ability to take short flights to get to a longer flight that ultimately will be less time than taking two flights of equal length. And so even then using a train, throwing a train in the middle of it, and saying, okay, I'm going to fly here, then I'm going to jump a train, and then I'm going to take a flight out of another place. And so you really get creative. We were in Italy, and everybody made the assumption that taking the train to Rome was the right way to go. And we decided at the last minute to go the other way and take the train to Milan. And I think we ended up getting on a flight that ultimately would have gotten us to where we wanted to go a little bit quicker. And so we either gained some time on the folks who were in the lead. I forget the exact details, but I just remember it was a scene where I'm telling Nancy, just tell Drew, don't let the train leave. Tell him to make a scene. And I'm on the phone and I'm trying to get them to complete the reservation for all of us. And so literally made the train by like 2 seconds and it all worked out for everybody. So just a matter, I think, of being open to taking different routes. And the idea in my mind was always to just kind of put yourself at the mercy of the people who are doing this for a living. All right, so you run into an airport and there's 5 people standing behind the counter. I just kind of laid out the story. It was like, hey, listen, doing this travel show for American TV, and we need to get to wherever as quickly as possible. What do you suggest? And kind of let them think about it and go, oh, well, you know, your best route is to go over to that airline and fly direct. Or the best way for you to get out of Tunisia is to take this flight. And so that was always the way that I figured out the best way to go. You saw some of the other people run up and they were very demanding. There's a lot of yelling and banging the counter. And I always just kind of wanted the other folks to suggest something. And then I would kind of counter suggest, okay, you think that's good? Or could I do this? da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, sometimes I said, yeah, that wouldn't be bad either. You could do this and do that. And so keeping in mind that we had to try and avoid airstrikes and other stuff that just completely unanticipated, that was the toughest part. And I think the people who are getting around these days, I think they have it a little bit easier, but the challenges, I think, are difficult when you're building stuff. I always think about that poor woman who had to shoot the watermelon catapult, eventually took one right in the mush. Those challenges, I mean, they look like they were fun, but they could take a little bit of time. There really wasn't something that took us a ton of time, and so we might have been lucky in that regard, but at the same time, I think we had more challenging logistics issues.
I've always wondered, how long were you actually waiting on the phone, and how long was the train there waiting for you?
I would say the train, because it came in for a regular stop. And so, I don't know, what's a train stay in a station for? 5 minutes? And everybody, if you remember correctly, we were all standing around the phone. Then everybody took off to go to the train. Nancy stayed with me, and she was kind of yelling down the stairs to somebody else who had the access to go up to the other side. So they were communicating that to the rest of the group. And so that was my last words to Nancy, just like, you go now and just tell Drew, don't let the train leave without me. Tell him to make a scene. He dropped something. He did something. I could always blame him for something. He's a big oaf. People believe that he did something silly. So that was an easy one for us. And thankfully, it didn't leave without me. We got on and off we went.
Backtracking a bit to the beginning of leg 6, that was an interesting start to the leg because instead of departing from the pit stop at the Sahara Desert Oasis, you were transported to the town of Gabez because of a sandstorm. On top of that, when you got to the airport to try and book airline tickets to Rome, Italy, you found out that there was an airport strike in Rome. Being that this was the first race, after these back-to-back problems occurred, were you or any of the other contestants thinking that the production of the show was slowly falling apart?
No, I think we were all having the time of our lives, and so no one cared. In fact, I think everybody would have liked it if it went on for another 10 or 15 days. But all good things must come to an end. I think some of those things only made it more memorable for us, those downtimes where we got stuck. For example, everybody got to France, and the day before we actually did leave, a number of people were sick, and it was probably from eating food in Africa. And I was one of those people. I was literally in the bed in the hotel in Paris, and I was shivering. I was burning up with a fever, so they gave me antibiotics and some other stuff so that I wouldn't start putting out, if you will. And so that was like a relief. I just remember when they called the room and they said, we're on 24-hour hold because of visa issues or something like that. And I just remember laying in bed and freezing to death. There was no way I could have got up and gotten out there and started doing all this stuff because I just felt terrible. But there was a number of people who were sick. So that was one instance. There was another instance when we got to India and we went to Lakshmi Niwas. Everybody came to the pit stop, and we were all kind of expecting, okay, well, 12 hours later, we're all going to have to take off. And I think we ended up being at Lakshmi Niwas for another 48 hours, maybe 72 hours. Again, there was a visa thing. And so we just all hung out together, had fun, talked to the locals, got to enjoy this palace that they let us stay at. And I remember each of the nights that we were there was a rooftop, and we would all just hang out there and look out over that part of India, all the lights, and drink Kingfisher beer. That was the name of the beer in India, Kingfisher. So we drank a lot of Kingfisher beer up on that rooftop and just enjoyed one another's company. So those were some of the best memories of the race, where we took a break for a little while and got to enjoy ourselves. And that's one of the things that people ask all the time. Hey, did you get to see the Louvre? Did you get to see Notre Dame? Did you get to spend time at the Great Wall? And the answer is always, well, I saw it, yeah. We didn't really get to walk around, didn't get to take pictures. Back in the day, nobody had phones with cameras anyhow, so you couldn't even do selfies, but we didn't have cell phones. It was bittersweet in that we didn't get to spend a lot of time at some of these really cool things, but I think we spent enough time that it'll be an indelible mark in my memory.
India was such a culture shock for all of the teams, and it's still one of the most difficult locations the race goes to. What was it like riding the rickshaw in the market for the roadblock?
Yeah, I got to tell you, it was culture shock, that's for sure. We got there, and it's literally a powder keg of humanity. There are people everywhere. And so they told us we have to get in this rickshaw. And now I'm sitting in the back of the rickshaw, and the guy's trying to get through this crowd of people. And in addition to the crowd of people, he's trying to get past and around buses, trucks, motorcycles, cows, And you got out to the street. We got out of that parking lot there at the Red Fort. We went out into the street, and it was chaos. Nobody was going in the right direction. Everybody was just kind of going in whatever direction they were headed. I remember seeing these policemen, and they didn't have batons, but they had bamboo sticks. And they would just shoot people to go in the right direction. And I just remember seeing that and going, God, I hope they don't hit me because I'm on this rickshaw and I'm following this guy. So wherever he goes, I'm hoping is the right direction. And so we got through all that traffic, and then we entered the marketplace. And literally the marketplace, I'm not a tall guy, so I don't have a big wingspan, but I literally could have put my hand out on either side of the rickshaw and been touching the stuff that was in the marketplace. So when we went up that alley, it was a really slow go. And all I'm thinking is, oh, God, I hope this guy knows what he's doing because it's taken forever. And then when we got to the guy who showed us the clue, he popped open the box, and I looked at it, and I just grabbed the clue. I didn't even look to see that's the Taj Mahal. He's telling us to go to the Taj Mahal. And so all it said was get yourself to Agra, the Taj Kema. And so we're asking people near the Red Fort, do you guys know Taj Kema? Do you know Taj Kema? And everybody's saying no. And so we're thinking, oh, my God, nobody knows it? It should be something that everybody knows. They're telling us to go there. You would think that a lot of people would know. Of course, unbeknownst to us, we were about 5 or 6 hours drive from Agra. And so we finally found somebody who knew what we were telling them. We have to go to Agra, and that there's this place in Agra called Taj Kema. And so we got in the car, and off we went. And talk about a bumpy ride. I just remember it was kind of like an unpaved road the entire way. So there's lots of bumps, lots of oncoming traffic. Everybody's beeping the horns at each other. It was a nerve-wracking ride. And we finally got there. And after all this time, Drew and I are talking for a solid hour about, well, you know what? It was fun. Let's be good sports when we get out. Wish everybody well. Thank everybody for having us. And this was great. Let's be good sports about it. And so we get there. And, of course, we get to the set. Nobody can figure out how to get onto the set, so we kind of came in the back. So everybody turned their attention and saw us walking in, and we got on the mat, and we were like, all right, Phil, let us have it. And he told us we were the 4th team to arrive. And it was like, oh, my God, thank you. That is just amazing. And maybe that's when you talk about the fast forwards and the judicious use of the fast forwards, I think that was the one that Frank and Margarita got. And so they got a much smoother path to the Taj Kema than we did, which probably took weeks and months off our lives. So that was probably a good one by them. And I'm sure that they had a huge lead, at least for a little while, because as soon as it was time to go to the Taj Mahal, they probably got held up by operating hours.
Yeah, they went from an 11-hour lead to a 45-minute lead. Brad fact.
Yeah, and that was the great equalizer.
Well, going back to the traveling aspect of Season 1, now on The Amazing Race, there are legs where there really isn't a lot of long-distance traveling compared to legs back on Season 1 where there was a lot of traveling during each individual leg. So do you think the racers from the current seasons have it a bit easier when it comes to single-leg traveling?
Yeah, and I wonder if they do that because The Amazing Race is such a household name now that it's difficult to be out in public because people see the camera crews, they see the crazy Americans with the backpacks and running all over the place. I don't know the reason, but I would like to see a little bit more of them having to actually engineer a journey so that they can get from where they are to where they're going. And what's funny, you reminded me about the train ride. That train ride was still to this day one of the funniest things that we did. We were sitting with Rob and Brennan on the train, and it was just funny. It's like the things that happened on there. A guy would come through about every half hour selling tea, and he would just walk through the train, and he kept saying, chai, chai, chai. And so Brendan and I were laughing. Still to this day when I see him, we'll give it a chai, chai, chai. And then there was another guy came through, and I think he was looking for money, and he was tapping this metal plate. And he went right over to Drew, and Drew was sleeping, and he tapped on this plate right in Drew's ear, and Drew jumped up like an elephant that just sneezed in his ear and looked at the guy like, what the hell are you doing? And so, of course, myself and Rob and Brennan, we were hysterical laughing. But then we encountered some families on the train, and Drew was trying to teach the little kids how to play poker. That train ride in particular was a lot of fun, and we got a lot of laughs on that one.
Leg 9 in Thailand is where you and Drew started to fall behind because for the detour, you decided to spend over 2 hours looking for a private car to take you to Kanchanaburi instead of taking a bus. And this was an example of how a detour for Season 1 wasn't really a challenge, but rather a choice of how to get to your next destination. You ended up taking the bus when you ultimately couldn't find the car, but you were still far behind Frank and Margarita and Rob and Brennan.
Having won the fast forward, Joe and Bill are able to skip all remaining tasks and travel directly to the pit stop at this Buddhist temple, 500 miles south of Bangkok. As they begin to gather information about how to get to the pit stop, Nancy and Emily make their way to the route marker at the Temple of Dawn, where Kevin and Drew have spent nearly 2 hours searching for a private car.
The car is somewhere, like, sprinkled in here in one of these little streets. It will take hours to find. This is the West Gate right here. The one we came out is the West Gate.
And what makes you so sure?
Because it's west, and it's the only exit.
Oh, yellow flag, yellow flag. Oh, okay.
The temple's here. We're going back.
We're not going back. It's about 1 kilometer up this road. We didn't go far enough.
Well, as I know, whoever don't get the fast forward is going to be here any minute.
Thank you so much. What we're doing. Detour. Oh gosh, the decision. Another one. Public. Travel by public bus. Detour. Private. Private. Travel by a free private car. All right. Okay, Mom. I'm gonna go see if any of these cars are the right ones.
Just get a cab there or something.
No, we can't.
We could walk around for an hour looking for this guy.
The bus is leaving in 10 minutes. We're on it.
But we need to go bus terminal to
Canterbury.
So do you consider this to be your biggest mistake of the race?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Everywhere else, we were just like, all right, listen, let's just do the thing that looks like it's going to be a pain in the butt. Let's just do that, and we'll be fine. If there looks like there's an easy way to get ahead, it's probably not an easy way. Another example of that was in China, when we decided to take the motorcycle ride versus going to play the ping pong champion. We're thinking to ourselves, oh, God, what are the chances we're ever going to get 5 points on a ping pong champion in China, where every ping pong champion from the beginning of time has lived? And so we're like, you know what? There's no chance that's going to happen. Let's just take the motorcycle ride. How difficult can it be? So we jumped on the bus. We got to the motorcycle ride. That was good for some laughs as well. But yeah, I think that was a dopey mistake by us. And we spent so much time running around, and it was so hot in Thailand. It was like 100 degrees. I think the heat probably was working on us as well. And had we just gone and gotten on the bus like the others, we would have been probably part of that front group to the end. But I'm actually quite happy the way everything worked out. We could have theoretically ended up like Bill and Joe, which probably was the downside. That was a big bummer for them to get the news and not be at the finish line. And so had that been Drew and I think that kind of would have been an awful way to end what was an otherwise fantastic experience. So if it just wasn't to be, if they were going to be a few hours ahead of us, I'm glad the way it worked out for us that we went out when we did. So I've made my peace with that, that's for sure.
For leg 11, you had to travel to Beijing, China, where the focus was mainly on you and Drew and Team Guido to see who would be the third team to race to the finish line. At that point, you knew how far you were behind the front two teams, so did you think it was actually possible to catch up with them even with airport equalizers?
Yeah, we always held out that hope, thinking, okay, as long as we stay in it, something's going to happen where we're going to be all back together again. It wasn't to be for us, and obviously it wasn't to be for Bill and Joe. But the two teams, I think, who consistently were amongst the top group, they were the ones who raced to the finish. So, good for them. But Drew and I did get to stay in Beijing for a few days. And so we went and we saw the Great Wall. And literally, it is great. The one thing that we did not do that every other team that was eliminated during the race was we did not get to go to Sequesterville, which was, I think, in France for this first race. And we did not get sent there. They just said, hey, guys, you stay in Beijing for a couple of nights, relax, and then we're just going to fly you back, and you'll just meet everybody in New York. And that was great. So I guess it would have taken us just as long, if maybe longer, to go back through Europe and meet everybody, and we really wouldn't have been able to stay there. So it worked out very nicely for us where we got eliminated. We were sad, but at the same time, we had just come off this great high, and being able to explore Beijing was a cool way to spend the last couple of days before we flew back. And then flying back was incredible because you fly over Alaska, and flying over Alaska is like nothing I'd ever seen before because those huge glaciers, the mountains with the ice caps on top of them, they look like they're literally right under the wing. They're right there. So that was the coolest flight going back to the United States. And when we got off the plane in New York, it was great because all the teams had come to meet us at the airport. And the next day was my birthday. So we went out and we had this great dinner. And it was just an awesome way to decompress after not seeing half the teams for 2 weeks. So it was good to see them again, and just all around great experience, Bradley. It's tough to put into words what a memorable trip that was.
I've always wondered, as you were leaving the Leg 11 pit stop, Drew said to you that you had to get your bags, which were still in the cab. To which you replied, he's all the way on the other side of China.
Oh, here it is. I see you.
Got him.
Where are they? We gotta be here.
Welcome to China. Welcome to China.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to China.
Thank you. What number are we? Break us the bad news, Phil.
I'm sorry to tell you, you guys are the last team to arrive. That means you guys have been eliminated.
It was all coming together. We knew it. It was all coming together. And then it's over. What are you gonna do? It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. You hate to leave this early, but someone's got to go. That's it.
This has been grueling. Physically, mentally, emotionally. We have nothing to be sorry or ashamed of or nothing to regret because we gave it our all.
I was reading a thing in a book about the teaching of Buddha, and it said, when you speak, just speak. When you feel, just feel. When you see, just see. When you hear, just hear. And the last one is when you know, just know. And we can walk away here knowing that, you know, we did our best and it just didn't work out.
We gotta go get our stuff out of the cab.
He's all the way on the other side of China.
So, did you eventually end up getting your bags back?
We did get our bags back. That's something that still to this day, I probably say that, you know, it's on the other side of China, exaggerating. I don't want to walk all the way out to the driveway, or I don't want to walk all the way down to the curb to get the garbage cans. I'm like, oh, that's all the way on the other side of China. And so it was a perfect way to wrap that up there. And we had no idea where the guy was because when we ran through that park, I would guess at that park, maybe not as big as Central Park, but it's not much smaller. And we ran, if you think of the compass, we had to go to South Gate, and we entered probably at East Gate. So we ran all the way down and across to get to that South Gate. And unfortunately, Bill and Joe had figured out how to tell their driver they had to go to South Gate. We couldn't do it, and we were in traffic, and we just said, you know what, let's go. And, of course, in Beijing, where every taxi looks exactly alike, and there's just millions of people and millions of taxis, and now we just got out of a taxi, left our bags, and ran, I don't know, a couple of miles to where that gate was. And then how are we ever going to find this guy? So I guess somebody from production probably said, okay, you got to come with us. You have their bags. They still have to pay you. And I'm sure that they stepped in and made sure they didn't take off with our stuff.
Here's, come on. Get in. We're in a hurry. We have to go. Go. Just go. Go, get in front. Go. Drive. Go. Don't let everyone go. Go. Just go. Go.
Ah, they were all the way there behind the bus.
How does this happen to us every time?
We're done, man. We're done.
Tiantan Park.
South Gate. Show me the map.
Tiantan Park.
Number? No, it's not number. It's park. Park. He doesn't know where it is.
Where's
Tintan Park, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Park. Tiantan. Hold on a second. Wait. Let's see if there's a park here.
He knows right where we're going, this guy. I know he does. I can feel it.
No, Tiantan Park.
Okay, this is it. Taxi race.
I think we should
dying
get
here.
now and walking.
Dying here.
Man, I beat him with the food, and I can't believe this. I can't believe it.
Zhao Hengmen Gate. Okay. Zhao Hengmen Gate. Where's my book? Is you got my book, the white one. Okay. It has the word South in it. Okay. Yeah, but you have to say South Gate. Well, I know that.
He don't know what South Gate is.
No, well, it doesn't make a difference what South Gate.
Yes, it does. Ask him if he knows where it is, man.
You want to make a run for it?
I don't know. Where is it?
I mean, there's an opening up here. I don't know if that's South Gate or what.
How far?
I don't see I don't see anything.
Walk. Is Pepple here?
Okay. Non-men.
Is this the East Gate? Find me the South Gate, Cap. Find me the South Gate.
It's over there. Come on.
Where?
Ask this guy. South Gate?
All right. Which is the South Gate?
South.
That way?
Yeah.
Come on. How do you know?
South Gate.
Where?
Non-park. Non-men.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember,
Good.
non-men.
Yes.
Tian Gongwan.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Let's get into a clearing.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. We had to retrace our steps, and that was tough because when we're running and we're looking and we're asking people, Southgate, 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 and how the hell did we ever get to where we were? But yes, we did get our bags back, and so that was a good thing.
Being from Queens, I've been to Flushing Meadows Park many times, but every time I'm by the Unisphere, I always go to the exact spot where the race ended, which is on the Africa side of the globe, and either recreate the run with the historic music in my head or just stand in the spot and admire the significance it has in reality show and TV history.
I'm a big Mets fan, and so I go out to Citi Field quite a bit. And invariably, one or two times, you have to park out by the tennis court. And, I always see the Unisphere, and I always tell my kids, tell my wife. They're already tired of hearing it. Anybody that I'm with, I'm like, right there, finish line for first season of The Amazing Race or The Amazing Race, period. And so I've often seen it. Brennan and I guess it was the summer after the show aired, he came to New York and we did a victory tour. So we went to the Hilton where we stayed. We went to Bethesda Fountain, and then we went out to Queens and we saw the Unisphere and took a bunch of pictures and stuff. He was more excited, obviously, for the Unisphere than I was, but it was pretty neat the way that they had everything laid out and the big mat. They had the world behind it and all of us lined up as those guys were running in, and that was pretty neat.
Now, Kevin, I know why you call it The Amazing Race, period, but for the listeners who don't know, why don't you explain why you refer to Season 1 as The Amazing Race, period?
Because we were the original. There was none ever like it. You can try and emulate The Amazing Race, and that's the title that's on the box, and that's the title you see when you go to Amazon Prime. We were The Amazing Race. Everything else was just a copy, seasons 2 through 32. So I like being the original. If somebody says, oh, I watched Rocky last night, they don't say I watched Rocky 1. They say I watched Rocky. When you watch Rocky 2, you watched Rocky 2. Rocky 3, you watched Rocky 3. But if you just watched the first one, it was Rocky. And so that's the way I feel about The Amazing Race.
And I can only imagine how proud you and the other teams were as you were clapping for the final shot at the Unisphere, that you were part of something that had never been done before.
Yeah, of course. But then at the same time, we had no idea if it was going to air. That was the next battle, putting it together and whether or not it was going to be on TV. They certainly did not give us a lot of lead time. I don't think we got the confirmation that it was going to be on Wednesday nights until mid-August. And so that's when everybody kind of exhaled. But I had a friend who was a media buyer, and he went to what they call the upfronts, where CBS puts their new programming out to show advertisers, to say, hey, listen, this is the stuff that's coming out. Tell your clients they should buy commercials for these shows, and this is why. And I remember him telling me, oh, my God, dude, I saw you. You were awesome. You yelled, swing, you fat bastard, swing. And he goes, everybody was laughing. Everybody was cheering. They were all so excited. This is really going to be a big deal. So that got me excited. Immediately, I called Brennan, I called Drew, I called everybody, and I'm like, guys, everybody loves it. It's going to be a big hit. It's going to be a big hit. I remember listening to the Howard Stern show, and if you're a Howard Stern fan, you would know the name Vinny Favale. Well, Vinny was an executive at CBS, and he used to go on Howard's show quite a bit, and he was telling him, you have to watch a show called The Amazing Race. And Howard would have none of it. He's like, no way, I'm not watching that show. You're a corporate man, Vinny. You're just telling me it's good because it's CBS. I'm going to watch my friend Joe Rogan on Fear Factor. And I was like, oh, it was a dagger through the heart for me because I'm such a big Howard Stern fan. And I knew right then that he was going to have zero interest in watching what goes on. So that was a bummer for me. But nonetheless, it was pretty neat when it got on TV and people were watching it. It was just great. People at work, at the time I worked at Deloitte, and people at work were so happy, and all my friends and family got 1 million calls, 1 million texts, 1 million emails. We saw you on TV. It was great. Everything was great. I don't think Amazing Race was a huge ratings draw. I think we did pretty good in that first week. Obviously, the week after, things globally changed for everybody, so it wasn't on anybody's mind for the next 2 weeks. And then ultimately, I think towards the end, it started picking up a little bit of momentum, and so it was nice at the end. I think they got a big number. Brennan would know exactly the number because he's the trivia guru for all things Amazing Race, period, season 1. And he would tell you exactly what the rating was for the night of the finale.
I've had Joe and Bill, Team Guido, on the game show twice before, and during their first appearance, they told me that if it wasn't for Joe and Bill and Kevin and Drew, the Amazing Race would have never existed past season 1. So in other words, the personalities of you and Drew and the Guidos saved the show. Do you believe that to be true? Because in reality, the first season got just enough viewership for CBS to give it a second season.
I don't know anything about that. It's awfully nice that Bill and Joe included us in that accolade. I'm sure the smart people at Around the World Productions, Bertram, Elise, all the guys who were involved in that production, they would have figured out a way to get it on the air. I know CBS, they loved it creatively. I mean, everyone agrees. It is the best reality TV show on the air. There's no nonsense. There's no sitting around and bickering about how hungry you are, how tired you are. There's no voting off crap. It's all straightforward competition. Last team from point A to point B is eliminated. And you get a different backdrop every week. So it's great for kids. It's great for adults. I'm sure they would have figured out a way to keep it going, but it's awfully nice that Bill and Joe said that. We have been told by other contestants after that when they were in the casting process that they had mentioned things trying to find another team like Kevin and Drew. So that's terribly flattering to hear that. But I don't think you can say, hey, it was because of us that it made it through. But it's nice to be thought of in that vein.
Did you continue to watch the seasons after season 1?
I did. I would say up until about season 7, season 8, that's kind of where I started losing where it was, what time it's on. And I had gotten married, and so my wife was probably like, I'm not watching this show. And so I think we kind of got lost. When Cord and Jet were on, obviously we tuned in because we knew those guys. So that was fun watching them, and they're great guys. They're a lot of fun, those two. Somehow they finagled their way into getting on to 3 different seasons. I don't know what they did that got them on 3 seasons, but Drew and I were hoping for the trifecta as well. It's yet to come. Maybe they'll have one last season and invite us back and see if we can duke it out with Bill and Joe again. That would be good fun.
Well, if they did ask, would you say yes to a 3rd time around the world?
You know, my wife says that all the time. She goes, you know, you should do it. You should do it. You can win $1 million. And I said, yeah, you know what? That's what we said back for that first All-Star season. You have to go because you can win $1 million. And at the time, she was pregnant, so the $500,000 that I would have gotten would have come very much in handy. But it just wasn't to be. So now, this much older, this much slower, this much crankier, I don't know that I would do it again. I think the biggest part would be not being able to see my kids for 6 to 8 weeks. That would be the tough part. But if they told me, Dad, you got to go, I would think about it. But I don't think we're going to have to worry about it. Unfortunately, our performance in the All-Star season did not warrant a look for a 3rd season.
Well, hey, Margie and Luke only placed 7th in Unfinished Business, and they got asked back for a 3rd season. Brad fact.
Yep, they did. And I like Luke. I think he's awesome. And obviously him overcoming the challenges that he needs to overcome to participate in a race like this. Whereas, you know, it's all about communication and yelling to people. I'm coming down the Eiffel Tower and I'm yelling to Drew things and he's yelling up to me. And so, you know, that's tough. But I think they're really good and they deserve being on a 3rd season.
Well, in 2004, when Survivor did its 8th season, which was an all-star season, when you saw this, did you think Amazing Race would be doing an all-star season soon, and did you think that you would be asked back?
I really hope so. I really, really hoped. And I can remember getting a call from Elise And I picked up the phone, and I was like, hello? And first thing she said to me, she goes, no, I'm not calling about that. And I'm like, oh, Elise, you're killing me. And she was calling to ask us to be the hot dog vendors during the family edition. And so I'm like, well, when are we going to do this All-Star? And she's like, I don't know, but we want to do it. We'll see what happens. So it was just one of them things where it took a little bit longer, and that was fine. And then they finally figured out the format, how it's going to be, who's going to be on it.
You know what's funny? When I first saw you two as the hot dog vendors, I actually really thought that you became hot dog vendors. So I begged my mother for at least a good year saying, can we please go to 91st Street between Park and Lexington because Drew and Kevin are there and they're hot dog vendors and I want to meet them.
They work at a hot dog stand on 91st Street. How funny is that? That was a great experience. It was really quite a spectacle. By now, people knew what the Amazing Race was. They had the street closed off in a couple of directions. There was a helicopter flying above us, getting an overhead shot. And so these guys were just released, and they're off, and they're picking up the clues. And it was great. The Lynn's family, they won, and the Gagin family, I remember, because the youngest child was really small. So it was kind of funny when we saw them. We're like, oh, my God, these kids are so young, and here they are doing this amazing thing with their family. So that was pretty cool, and it was nice of them to invite us to be a part of it. I don't think half the people knew who the hell we were, but a few of them definitely did, and they were like, oh, my God, hey, we know you guys. We watched you on the first season, period. And so it was pretty neat. I think there were maybe some cuts because people were pointing at us and people were waving to us, and these were real hardcore fans that they chose to be a part of this. It would have been a little overkill for them to show 2 or 3 different teams walking up and saying the same thing, carrying on like, oh, we know you guys, blah, blah, blah. But when we left for that first All-Star season, when we got to Miami Airport, we walked in there, and this is now November of 2006. And everybody knew what we were doing while we were there. Most people knew the teams by name. Obviously, Rob and Amber, all Survivor fans, they saw them, but they knew us, and people are coming up and saying, hey, can we take a picture? We're trying to be nice, but we're at the same time, we're like, listen, we kind of got to go. We're in the middle of a race here. And they're like, oh, my God, this is it? Really? You guys are on another race? And we're like, yeah, we got to go. And so it was pretty neat. And that was when I think it really became obvious to us how big the race had become, that many people in the airport knew what we were doing, knew who we were, and had seen us on TV. So, again, pretty flattering, very cool, and didn't have any cell phones, so obviously we couldn't take pictures with people and save them for our own memories, but nonetheless, it was good stuff.
When you finally saw the entire cast for the Amazing Race All-Stars, were there any teams that you were surprised to see at the starting line?
I mean, I think they had a good mix of folks. Truth be told, I had no idea who Mary and Dave were, the Kentucky people. Had no idea who they were, didn't watch that season, didn't realize that they were literally just on the race a couple of months before they went back on the race. Everybody else, we knew, obviously, Bill and Joe from our season, Danny and Oswald, we knew them, Rob and Amber, of course. We knew Terry and Ian from being at their finale party in New York, so we got to meet them. And then Eric and Danielle, who ended up winning it, of course. We really didn't know them very well. I remembered him being on the race with his buddy, and obviously her. I remembered her and her teammate. They were both from Staten Island, both attractive girls, so couldn't forget them. But in terms of anybody who didn't belong, I don't think anybody didn't belong. And we loved the fact that John Vito and Jill were there. As it turned out, we ended up seeing them first in Sequesterville, which was in Acapulco. So that was great. We spent almost 3 weeks together with John Vito and Jill. And so as people came, it made it more fun for us. But I think everybody who was there deserved to be there. I think they did a good job of casting that first All-Star. I believe they had a team waiting in the wings as well, just in case one of the teams that was picked to go on the first All-Stars. That was the word around the hotel while we were there, that they had another team kind of waiting in the wings in the event one team crapped out for whatever reason. So I don't know who that team was, but apparently they were kind of this close to going. I don't know if they ever made it on a subsequent All-Stars, but that's entertainment.
When you saw Joe and Bill as part of the cast for the Amazing Race All-Stars, did you relive memories from season 1 at all?
No, we saw them, we gave them a hug, good to see you guys. I had seen them a bunch of times after our season, so we kind of figured their landmark status as kind of a breakthrough team made good sense that they were on there. Would have been great to have Rob and Brennan because I became very good friends with Brennan and Rob after the race and visited them in L.A. and they visited me here in New York. So we probably hung out with them more than anybody else. That would have been fun to have them. But there's just so many people, I guess, you can get on the race and you just have to make those tough cuts.
From the get-go, Drew seemed like he was having a hard time because of some pains and ailments. Did you think Drew was physically okay to race? Because even before you got to Ecuador, he seemed to be struggling just running to the starting line cars.
Right. There's a scene where Charla actually runs right past Drew and she starts yelling, oh my God, I beat Drew in a race.
This is so exciting! Look at me time! Yeah! I can't believe I outrun Drew. You outran Drew? Drew, yeah! Oh, wow, good for you!
Did you see everyone pass me? I look like an idiot.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Kev, I can't run at all with that backpack.
I think we were kind of expecting that he was going to have a little bit of trouble. I don't know that we expected he'd have that much trouble, but he was banged up, and so that's the way it happens. Maybe we were the ones that they were waiting to see if we were going to be able to go, and that's why that other team was in the wings, because Drew was pretty banged up. He had a couple of things going on, and not that he was mobile. Don't get me wrong here, Bradley. He wasn't mobile in the first season, but he was definitely less mobile on the first All-Star. So I think that it was just something that we tried dealing with, and I don't have anything to do with him. It was the fact that we didn't make it to the next leg. That was the big thing with the speed limit sign.
Teams must now choose one of these marked vehicles and drive 71 miles to enter the landscape called the Valley of the Moon. The sharp turns and shifting sands require teams drive no more than 40 kilometers per hour. Once they exit the Valley of the Moon, they may return to driving 50 kilometers per hour as they search for this place, the Valley of the Dead.
This barren wilderness is the pit stop for this leg of the race. The last team to check in here may be eliminated.
And I think they did us kind of dirty on that, where they kept showing that speed limit sign, and we kept going. Everybody else is speeding.
You stay right in the middle and drive 40 kilometers. If anybody passes us, they got to be going over 40 kilometers.
Right,
so this is the way we have to go to the end at this point in time.
We're approaching the highway. This is where it's all going to kick into a race now.
Do not let them pass, Drew. You stay right in the middle and drive 40 kilometers. Do not let them pass.
The gate guard told me there was no speed limit anymore, but they're working under the premise, I guess, that it's still 40.
Drew, coming on your left, coming on your left, coming on your left.
What was that?
Terry and Ian.
We're back on the hard top road. Speed limit ain't 40 no more. I can go 50.
Why, does it say 50?
Speedometer back there
Okay.
said 50.
Well, get behind them. Okay, go ahead, pass them. Oh, Kevin and Drew. See, you wouldn't want to be here.
Let them all do what they want. They're all going well over 40. I'm not going to go over the speed limit.
Just stay right in the middle. You drive your 40 kilometers.
What are they doing? Do they know where the hell they're going? Just pass them. We're going under the 40. Taxi guy left. Just go. Clueless? At least if you knew where you were going, you could do your little maneuvers. Make sure no cars are coming. Go.
You know what? Maybe they know something. We follow them. So they're going over 40.
Speeding!
We had gotten yelled at by the production people. They told Drew, you got to slow down. You can't be speeding. So they're like, listen, if you do it again, we're going to apply a penalty and you guys could be out. And so we were like, all right. And we're telling the camera guy, as everybody is ripping past us, we're telling the camera guy, look, we're going the speed limit. Get a shot of the odometer. Show them that we're going the speed limit, that everybody else is driving in excess of the speed limit, and they should be penalized. So it was kind of a bummer the way that we went out. I felt it was a little dirty, but just the way it goes. But there were not that many signs. Maybe we passed one sign that told us what the speed limit was, even though we received something in our hands that said the speed limit in the park, the thing on the moon, I forget.
The Valley of the Moon. Brad fact.
Valley of the Moon. There you go. When we entered the park, they gave us a piece of paper that says speed limit throughout is 40 kilometers. I don't want to sound bitter, but it was just one of those things. When we said to the guys afterwards, like, hey, listen, you got to review this footage because we're driving the speed limit and everybody else is zipping right past us like they're going to a fire. And we were told we can't drive past the speed limit or else you're going to penalize us. So now you got to look at them and you got to penalize them. And so they came up with some fakakta penalty for everybody else. and it still didn't get us into 9th place. We still would have been in 10th place by that fakakta calculation they did, but it took hours to figure it out. We were there in the Valley of the Moon, and everybody was really mad at us because it was Thanksgiving Day, and they were going to have a big Thanksgiving dinner, but everybody had to stay at the finish line. The attorneys were on the phone with people back in L.A., and they were trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do here? And I think we had a legitimate gripe, but ultimately they're not going to say, okay, you guys got a penalty and you're eliminated, because that would just be blasphemous. So unfortunately, it was our time.
Come on, let's go. There you go. Drew, come on, dude. We're wasting time.
Welcome to San Pedro de Atacama, Chile, guys.
Gracias.
Welcome. Kevin and Drew, you are the last team to arrive.
Okay.
It's all right.
Where you going?
Okay, just stay right here, please.
Drew, stay here. Come on. Be a good sport.
I am being a good sport.
No, you're not.
I'm sorry to tell you have been eliminated from the race.
Okay.
All right, that's fine.
Drew,
let me put my hat on before my head.
He doesn't seem that happy.
No, he doesn't. He's not happy. These were 2 excruciating legs. And he's doing all the driving, so, he's got all the pressure on his shoulder, on his neck, on his back. It's pretty bad. So
I can't breathe. My back hurts. My feet hurt from driving. My voice is going. I didn't quit. I tried my hardest. That's all I can ask. Kevin stepped up and held us together.
We came into this as a team. If I were hurting, he would certainly pick up the slack for me. I'll look back on this as a great opportunity. I wouldn't have passed it up for the world, but it's bittersweet.
But we had fun, it was a short trip, but we still enjoyed it. We got to do some fun stuff in South America. I'd never been to South America before, so it was good to visit a few countries down there. And then we got to spend 3 weeks in Acapulco, which wasn't awful, but for the fact that my wife was pregnant, and we knew at the time that we were having a baby, but the doctors told us that it could be more than one baby. So that was killing me, not knowing. Turns out we had triplets, and I didn't find out till after the race. So it was pretty crazy. It made me very cranky to be sitting there with my wife home, knowing how our life is going to change. And I was still pretty sad about being eliminated. But we had fun. When Boston Rob got there, me, him, and John Guido, we went out and golfed. We probably watched every season of The Sopranos on DVD. I mean, literally just in the pool during the day. And then in the afternoon, we would just take a nap. And then at night, all drink beer and sit around the TV and watch The Sopranos. So it was good fun.
So did any of the teams end up getting penalties for speeding, or were no penalties actually given out because you were going to be eliminated anyway?
I think they told us, you guys finished in this amount of time. Even if we gave these guys 15-minute penalty, 20-minute penalty, half hour, whatever it was, you still would have finished after them. It would have been closer, but you still would have finished after them. And that was the basis for their decision. Like I said, it seemed kind of dirty, but nonetheless, it was what it was. I'm sure they applied the rules. This is all a regulated thing, right? You have to be really on the up and up. So I'm sure they figured out some way. It just wasn't the way that I was figuring it and I was pleading for. Look, given Drew's physical ailments, we probably wouldn't have gone much further anyhow. So he didn't mind going to Acapulco. I did. In fact, when we were there, I was hanging out with Jill and I said, look, if they're going to send a team back, I'm not taking him. I'm taking you. I said, so you better be ready to go when they come in and they go, guess what? The Guidos have been eliminated for something, and we have to put another team back into the race. So we were trying to come up with all these things like, oh, they're going to put another team back in the race, but it can't be a pure team. It has to be a hybrid. And so we were just goofing around all the time and talking about that stuff. And of course, it never happened. And it turns out a hybrid team actually won the race. Who would have thunk that? And so that's the way it goes. I guess I've been dating at one point. I think when we filmed, they weren't together anymore. So for the other teams that had legitimate gripes, like Rob and Brennan, the first winners, some of the other popular teams, to take one person and throw that together. Again, I think another example of stunt casting. But hey, listen. People try things. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. It worked out great for Eric and Danielle. They came away with $500,000 each. So God bless them.
Season 11 of The Amazing Race was completely different from Season 1, even from basic elements like the race flags now being red and yellow instead of white and yellow, and the race now having standard clue boxes, which weren't present in Season 1 because the clues were in random boxes in various containers placed along the race course. Brad fact.
Right, exactly, yeah. They got more money for production, I guess, so they were able to get all these other things. We never knew. Sometimes it was in a big crock pot, another time it was in a box. The time we were in Africa, we had to get the cameras to get the pictures of the animals. They were just strewn on a table. So, yeah, you never really had a consistent container for the clues. It was just all kind of flying by the seat of their pants.
When I first spoke to the Guidos, they said they felt out of the loop on All-Stars because of the changes, including the yield and the intersection, and now every leg doesn't have a fast forward to rely on. Did you and Drew feel out of the loop running the race for a second time?
No, didn't feel out of the loop at all. It was like, okay, they got some other things here. We can figure it out as we go along. And it wasn't that much of a big deal at all, the new rules. We didn't come across any, so ultimately it really didn't matter. Nobody got to yield us, so I think it was just fine. We weren't worried about it.
Out of curiosity, did you ever receive a penalty at the start of leg 2 for not taking the same car you had used in the previous leg? Because I remember reading that somewhere, but since it was never shown on television, I want to know if it was accurate.
No, but I can tell you this. It's funny that you bring this up. The car that we drove to the pit stop in, we absolutely destroyed. And when I say destroyed, I mean, I think both front tires were flat because Drew's going over these potholes 50 miles an hour, and the camera guy and the sound guy are telling Drew, you got to slow down, you got to slow down, you got to slow down. And we know that we're behind, and so he's, okay, I'll slow down, and then slows down for like 10 seconds and then starts speeding back up again. But we completely wrecked the front end of that car. And I remember the guy telling us, we're going to have to pay for this car. Why didn't you guys get out and fix the flat? And we're like, get out and fix the flat. Are you out of your mind? We're in the middle of a race. We're not getting out and fixing a flat that maybe will work. There's no way. And then we're going to drive, 25 miles an hour on a donut? There's no way.
You gotta be kidding. Oh, man. What happened? Let's see here.
Droopy, we got a flat, baby.
What are we going to do?
Thanks for your help. Make your way on foot to the pit stop.
Hacienda. There's a hacienda.
Oh, man. You want to keep driving on or you want to try and change it?
No, I'm not changing the tire.
Well, we're going to keep going.
I hope we can make it.
So we just drove that thing with the flat tires, and by the time that we got to the pit stop, I guess the ground was so moist that the front end literally sunk into the mud. And then the next day, when the sun came up, it dried. So now the front end of that car was stuck in the mud, and of course it was destroyed. And we're thinking, oh my God, we have to use this car to get out of here. So they told us, you guys can't go anywhere near that car until you're released from the pit stop. And we're like, what are you talking about? It's right there. You would let other people go and ask questions. And they're like, no way. You guys have to wait until we let you go. So as soon as they let us go, we ran around, we got a shovel, and we tried digging the front end of the car out. And they made us do this for about half an hour. And then out of nowhere, they pulled another car, and they go, here you go. Here's your new car. Get going. Don't destroy this one. So we did catch a penalty. But ultimately, it didn't make a difference because by the time we caught up with the rest of the group, there was a point in time, I think after the construction roadblock, we were out in first. It was us, and I remember we passed the beauty queens. We went right past them on the road. And I remember Drew and I celebrating, saying, worst to first. And there we were. And then we ran into the airport and booked our flight to the country where we eventually got eliminated from. But they did give us a penalty. They were really pissed. I don't know eventually how much they had to pay for that car. But, yeah, it was a mess by the time we got done with it.
And as I mentioned earlier, many of the Season 1 challenges weren't really challenges. But the challenges on Season 11 were actually challenges. So seeing the entire race and knowing what the upcoming challenges were, do you think you and Drew could have made it far had you not been eliminated in Leg 2?
I think in this one, as compared to the Amazing Race period, I think that the teams were much more physically even. So there wasn't really a team that was much older. The Beauty Queens, obviously, were a team of two women, but they were both pretty physically capable. And obviously, Myrna and Shmyrna, they got to the end. So they were pretty capable as well. Drew, obviously, was having some issues physically. So maybe we were kind of at the bottom of the barrel. But I think we were much closer matched physically with the other teams in this go-round. So I think they were able to amp up those challenges a little bit. I remember the one thing we had to do before we got to the pit stop, we had to trim the toenails of a horse.
In wrangling, teams must help local cowboys to lasso, tie down, and groom one wild horse, whose hooves grow so long it cannot walk properly. Team members must use traditional tools to clip its hooves to a safe length and to trim its mane and tail. When they set the horse free, they'll receive their next clue.
And they gave me something that looked like if I was trying to cut a master lock on a fence to get in, like a huge steel clipper. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, God, this is going to hurt the horse. I can't do this. And so we had to squeeze that thing so hard. But the horse's hoofs, it was so thick and so difficult to cut that I remember my arms, I was trying to squeeze, and all of a sudden my arms and my hands were shaking because I was squeezing so hard it wasn't going through. But eventually it did actually go through, and we were able to sneak in 10th place.
We have to stay focused.
I know, absolutely.
Just go. Right here? This way? Yes.
It's down there.
Okay. This is something up here.
Fight through it. Here we are. Wrangle it or recover it.
Let's do the horses.
So yeah, up there?
That's Hacienda.
Gotta be it. Oh my God, I've never been so happy in my life.
That was perfect.
Kevin and Drew, team number 10.
That was really it in terms of the challenge for us. That one, and then the one with the tractor was okay, I guess.
And by hand, teams must choose one of these 2-ton tires and properly align the bolts and washers to finish securing the tire to the truck. When they're finished, the foreman will give them their next clue.
I do remember thinking to myself, you know what? This could have been challenging for us had we gone on. Who knows, though, right? When you're in the thick of it and you're kind of amped up, you never know what you can pull off.
And at least you didn't get eliminated first.
And at least we didn't get eliminated first. Yep, that was JV and Jill. So, yeah, that was fine by us. It gave me 1 week to have a TV party. So we had a party for the premiere of that, and immediately thereafter we were eliminated. So people were like, well, it's a good thing you had the party for the premiere episode. And, I'm like, yeah, I knew it was coming. Nobody else did. But it was a lot more fun watching that first season because we got to see episode after episode after episode, and all the excitement that our friends and family had for us was just really awesome.
I always like to ask Amazing Race contestants, do you still keep in contact with any of your fellow racers? I know you mentioned Robin Brennan, but anyone else from either Season 1 or All-Stars that you still keep in touch with?
Facebook has obviously made it a lot easier for everybody to keep in touch. So I see people on Facebook. Lenny from Karen and Lenny, he lives in New York City. And so I'll see him a couple of times a year. Not anything regular, but we'll just meet up in the city quick and hang for a little bit. I do talk to Brennan probably more than anybody else, but I don't get to see him or hang out with him. I actually was in L.A. several months back, and so I got to see him when I was in L.A. We had dinner together and caught up then. But, yeah, that's it. Mariano, I see him, whether he's playing poker or he's on yet another season of Survivor. So you get to see some of the stuff that he's up to. He's got 3 beautiful girls, him and Amber. So I see pictures of the girls from time to time. But that's really it. I kind of lost touch with Emily. Don't speak to Emily. I haven't talked to her in ages. Leslie and Kim, they're both on Facebook, so I see them. Everybody's got families now. Joe and Bill have kind of gone off the grid a little bit, I think, since they moved to Hawaii. I don't get to talk to them or see them as much. Frank is here in New York, Margarita's as well. Their daughter, who was a little baby at the time that we did our race, she's now, I think, graduated from college. So it's just crazy to think about all the things that have gone on in the time that we've done that first season. But it's fun. Anytime I think of something and I need an answer for Amazing Race Trivia, I always call Brennan because he's got this steel trap of a memory and remembers everything. In fact, he was nice enough to remind everybody on Facebook not that long ago that when we landed in that private plane in Zambia on our way to Victoria Falls, that I came off the plane and they showed it plain as day on TV. I had 3 bottles of urine in my hand because there was no bathroom on that small plane. And so I guess I was drinking water, and I carried 3 bottles of urine off with me. And you can see that clear as day, Bradley. If you go back and take a look at that, you might want to miss that. But that was something that Brennan remembered that I had completely forgotten about. But he was nice enough to post that on Facebook. It was just one of them things, no bathroom on the airplane, and so got to do what you got to do.
And although I wasn't there during the first season, I have watched every single episode of The Amazing Race, and several seasons I've watched multiple times. So if you or Brendan ever need some Amazing Race trivia assistance, feel free to give me a call.
I know I can count on you now, Bradley. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure. And speaking of Amazing Race trivia, Kevin, we have reached my favorite portion of the game show. It's time for the game of the day.
Game of the day.
Now, Kevin, on season 1 of The Amazing Race, 9 countries were visited along the 35,000-mile race course. The United States, South Africa, Zambia, France, Tunisia, Italy, India, Thailand, and China. Well, it's time for you to visit those countries again, but this time in a slightly different way. Kevin, get ready because this is Race Route Recap. Race Route Recap. And just like I did with the Guidos, because Africa was the first non-North American continent ever visited on The Amazing Race, this game's background music will be Africa by Toto.
Awesome.
And here's how the game works. In front of me are the names of the 9 Amazing Race destinations you traveled to during Season 1 that I just mentioned. Each destination corresponds to a multiple-choice Amazing Race trivia question. However, although these questions are related to the destinations of the first race, the questions themselves aren't necessarily about the first race. They could be about any aspect from the history of The Amazing Race that are associated with the Season 1 destinations. You're going to answer the questions in route order from question 1 about the United States all the way to question 9 about China. And Kevin, if you can answer 5 out of the 9 questions correctly, you will cross the finish line first and be deemed a winner. And one more element to mention, after getting 2 correct answers, you'll receive a fast forward, which means if you hear a question you don't know the answer to, you can use the fast forward and automatically receive the correct answer point to that question. And in case you were wondering why you get the fast forward after 2 correct answers, well, on the Amazing Race period, you and Drew earned your fast forward on leg 3. So I feel it's only appropriate that you earn your race route recap fast forward when you have the possibility of getting your 3rd correct answer with its use. So Kevin, almost 20 years after traveling the race route for real, are you ready to travel the Season 1 race route from the comforts of your own home?
I am indeed.
Then let's play Race Route Recap. And we're going to start with the good old US of A. Remember, Kevin, 5 out of 9 correct answers are needed to win. And here comes your United States question. The only Amazing Race season to have the starting line and finish line in the same location occurred during Season 9 in what state? Was it Colorado, Texas, or Washington?
I am going to say Texas.
Unfortunately, that's incorrect. It's Colorado.
Colorado. Close enough.
The Amazing Race Season 9 featured the starting line and finish line at Red Rocks Amphitheater near Denver, Colorado. Brad fact. We're moving on to your South Africa question. And here it is. During what season of The Amazing Race was the next time after Season 1 that the teams visited Johannesburg, South Africa? Was it Season 3, Season 5, or Season 7?
I'm going to say it was Season 3.
Unfortunately, it was Season 7.
All right.
Leg 5 in Season 7 with Robin, Amber, and Uchenna and Joyce. They traveled to Johannesburg, South Africa. Brad fact. Next up is another Season 1, Leg 1 country, Zambia. And here's the question. What is the name of the district in Zambia that Batoka Gorge and Songwe Village are located in? Is it A, the Livingston District, B, the Rhodes District, or C, the Darwin District?
It's the Livingston District.
It is the Livingston District. Correct.
Boom. On the board.
You are indeed on the board. And by the way, the Livingston District is named after 19th century Scottish physician David Livingstone. Brad fact.
Excellent.
1 down, 4 to go. Next destination is France. And here is the question. France has been visited during 11 different Amazing Race seasons, the most of any European country. During which of these milestone Amazing Race seasons was France not visited? Is it A, Season 10, B, Season 20, or C, Season 30?
I don't know the answer here, but my rationale is this. Season 10 probably still needed to futz around somewhere in Europe, so France was probably part of that footprint. Same thing with Season 20. I'm saying by Season 30, they probably, maybe they looped back. I'm going to go with Season 20.
It is Season 20.
Bradley, look at me. Look at this.
France was visited during leg 12 of Season 10 and during legs 4 and 5 during Season 30, and the 11 seasons where France was visited during were Seasons 1, 4, 6, 10, 16, 21, 22, 26, 27, 28, and 30. Brad fact.
Holy cow.
Well, Kevin, you now have 2 correct answers, which means you now have the fast forward. Meaning if you don't know the answer to a question, play the fast forward, you'll receive a correct answer point for that question, and we will move on.
Very nice.
Your next question is about Tunisia, and here is the question. Tunisia is one of 13 African countries to have so far only been visited once in Amazing Race history. Which of these African countries has also only been visited during a single Amazing Race season? Is it Tanzania, Namibia, or Ethiopia?
I'm going to go with Tanzania. I'm feeling good about this.
It's actually Ethiopia. Ethiopia was only visited during leg 8 of season 6. Tanzania was visited 4 times, seasons 5, 11, 20, and 29, and Namibia was featured during seasons 2 and 26. Brad fact. And we never actually talked about this, but I'm very curious. What is your perspective on the Tunisia airport situation at the beginning of leg 6?
Look, they over-dramatize, right? They have the ability to put the sound bit, put the music behind it, and isolate the sounds and stuff like that. But truth be told, it was a pretty scary moment, not because Bill and Joe pushed somebody or did something, but these guys that were securing the airport, they had those really menacing-looking rifles and no smiles. And you see these guys come walking over, and your excuse is, oh, we were just trying to get by. They're not interested in any petty nonsense. They're trying to protect an airport. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. But the fact that we ultimately got through and got onto our plane was a great thing. We were able to wave goodbye to Bill and Joe, who started the whole commotion. But I digress.
And another thing I noticed during my most recent rewatch of Season 1 is that Drew mentioned when reading the clue to fly to Rome that you were allowed to use connecting flights to get from Tunisia to Italy.
Travel from Tunis to Rome and find the spot marked in this picture.
Connecting flights, that's Coliseum.
Right outside the Coliseum.
Come on, connecting flights are allowed. Let's go.
Were there previous legs where you weren't allowed to use connecting flights?
I think it's just the other way around. If we were not allowed to fly to a certain place or go a certain route, they told us specifically, you cannot fly through X. You were allowed to make whatever arrangements you felt was your best chance to getting to the next pit stop as fast as you could. So there was really no restrictions on what you could do unless they said, don't fly through X.
So you still have 2 correct answers, and with 4 questions to go, in order to win, Kevin, you need to answer 3 out of the next 4 questions correctly. But remember, you still have your fast forward, and the next question is about Italy. And here is the question. The location of the hoof detour choice during Season 1, Leg 6 in Rome, Italy, was also featured as a speed bump location during Leg 7 of which Amazing Race season? Was it Amazing Race Season 18, Unfinished Business, Amazing Race Season 24, All-Stars, or Amazing Race Season 31, Reality Showdown?
Oy vey. I think I'm going to take the fast forward on this one, Bradley.
All right, you're using your fast forward, which means you now have 3 correct answers. But if you had to guess, Kevin, which season would you have picked?
I would have said Season 31.
Well, I'm glad you used your fast forward because it was Season 24 All-Stars, and the building is called the Altare della Patria. Brad fact.
Yeah, it was this big official building where the gates out in front sunk down into the ground, so it was actually pretty cool. Very well guarded.
So with your 3rd correct answer, thanks to the fast forward, you need to answer the next 2 out of 3 questions correctly to win. The next country is India, and this is your India question. How many seasons has The Amazing Race visited India during the course of the show's history? Is it 9 seasons, 11 seasons, or 13 seasons?
I'm going to go with 13 only because I think that it's probably one of the most visited countries, so going 13.
It's actually only 11.
You sure you didn't miss 2?
I'm positive. India was visited during Amazing Race seasons 1, 4, 5, 7, 11, 12, 13, 14, 18, 20, and 27. And India is the 2nd most visited Asian country in Amazing Race history, behind China. Brad fact.
Wow, so they haven't been there in a while.
Yeah, they visited India a lot during the first 20 seasons, but only once after season 20, so I'm sure an India visit will be coming soon. All right, Kevin, 2 questions left, and you need to answer them both correctly to win. Next up is Thailand. And this is your Thailand question. What was the first Amazing Race season that traveled to Thailand that did not feature a leg in which Bangkok was visited in any length? Was it A, season 9, B, season 19, or C, season 30?
I'm going to go with season 19, Bradley.
It's actually season 30.
Oh, that's brutal.
Leg 10 of season 30 took place in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Leg 10 of season 9 and leg 5 of season 19 both visited Bangkok. Brad fact.
Wowza. All right, so there won't be any grand prize for me. Let me see if I can get into the top 3. I didn't do good in the top 3 last time. Let's see if I can overcome it.
All right, so this is really for redemption.
All right, here we go.
This is your final question, Kevin, and it's about the country of China. And the question is, after visiting the Great Wall of China during leg 12 of season 1, the next time the Amazing Race visited the Great Wall of China was for the location of a pit stop during which season? Was it season 10, season 14, or season 21?
I'm going with season 10. I think 9 seasons is... Oh, did Mary and David tell me that they went to China? I'm sticking with season 10.
Sticking with season 10. And you have redeemed yourself. It is season 10.
Woohoo!
And what I find interesting is that you got 4 correct answers, and during season 1, you finished in 4th place. So I guess you'll forever be attached to the number 4 when it comes to anything related to the Amazing Race period.
It all comes back to the 4th place team. At least I got a little something out of this one, you know? Almost got the grand prize, but I'll take top 3. I'm making slow, gradual improvement.
That's right. And the next time you come on the game show, we'll play again, and maybe you'll cross that finish line.
That sounds great, Bradley. I really appreciate it.
And by the way, in regards to the China question, during leg 1 of season 10, teams had to scale a section of the Great Wall of China using a rope to reach the first pit stop. And David and Mary, who you mentioned, just avoided elimination as they finished in 10th place. Brad fact. And that was the game of the day, Race Routes Recap. Race Routes Recap. Well, Kevin, it has been a childhood dream of mine to have the opportunity to talk about the Amazing Race with you. So thank you so much for letting me accomplish that dream by joining me today on the game show.
Well, thank you for having me. It really has been a pleasure. You brought back a lot of memories. I love the fact that you still enjoy watching the Amazing Race period, or season 1 as some people like to call it. And I will look forward to someday running into you and sitting down and having a beer, and we can go over some more of the inside stuff. I guess I have to go and I have to look for you over at Live with Kelly and Ryan Studios, because you're probably dancing or something.
That's Bradley Clarke from Queens, New York. What's up, bro?
I am doing, Graham, big fan of you, big fan.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm an aspiring game show host.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, I have hosted game shows.
I know, you work with Merv and Dick Clark.
Oh.
Do you know what we're going to let you do? We're going to let you spin the wheel when the time comes.
Yeah, we'll let you come over and do that.
You're going to practice your skills.
Should we see Bradley's skills here? Should we see if he can...
Bradley, can you read off this card and tell Ellen what she is playing
Ellen, guess what you're playing for? You're playing for the Pineapple Beach Club Antigua.
Oh!
7 days, 6 nights in a beachfront room, all inclusive,
Yep.
all inclusive. This trip is provided by Priceline, and it's valued at, get this, $5,900. Ellen, you have 20 seconds, only one guess, so good luck.
Nice job.
You know what? As it turns out, it is just as easy as it looks.
Yeah, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. Okay, so go ahead. Just the question then.
Ellen, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. On yesterday's show, we talked with Henry Cavill. Where in England did Henry say he grew up?
Jersey.
That's correct.
That works. Great job, man. We do this every day, and you did it better than we did. Well done.
I'm so glad you enjoyed my television game show hosting debut. I appreciate you bringing that up.
I did indeed. It was good stuff. This was really a pleasure, Bradley. Thank you so much for having me.
And of course, you always have an open invitation to join me on the game show again whenever you'd like to talk about the Amazing Race even more, or if you just want to play another game.
Awesome. It sounds great, bud.
Perfect. Well, Kevin, once again, this has been such a dream come true, so thank you so much for joining me today on the game show.
Hey, Bradley, it's been a lot of fun, man. I'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, just like Season 1 of The Amazing Race had to come to an end, Episode 44 of the game show, unfortunately, has to come to an end as well. My thanks once again to Kevin O'Connor, one half of teammates Kevin and Drew from The Amazing Race Season 1 and Season 11's The Amazing Race All-Stars for being my guest today. Now, if you want to re-listen to this episode, as well as check out episodes number 8 and number 15, featuring Kevin's Amazing Race Season 1 and Season 11 competitors, Joe Baldessare and Bill Bartek, a.K.A. Team Guido, all you have to do is log on to www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke, that's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. That's www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke, that's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. Plus, don't forget to like The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke on Facebook and follow The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke on Twitter using the handle @TheGameShowBC and #TheGameShow. But of course, be sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode of The Talk Show, all about the world of television game and competition shows, The Game Show. I'm Bradley Clarke, the Bradster, and I've got to go set up my sleeping bag at Mariage Frere Tea Shop in Paris. Hopefully it doesn't rain tonight. Bye for now. All of the Amazing Race cuts and sounds used during this episode of The Game Show are courtesy of the CBS television network.
This edition of The Game Show was created and produced by Bradley Clarke and was recorded at the WRHU studios. This is Austin Angelo speaking.
The Game Show is a Bradley Clarke production. Get your game on.